Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat, and today I'm talking about 10 different ways that I find diverse books translated or from around the world, or queer, or BIPOC. So without further ado, we're gonna get into it, and enough talking because this is gonna be a long video. So the first way that I find books is through NetGalley. So if you don't know what NetGalley is, it is a book reviewing website where you can join for free and request titles to read. You have to put in your information, such as if you have a book blog or a booktube or a Goodreads reviewer account. You have to have some place where you review books. And if you do have a place that you review books, then you could be granted access to these titles that NetGalley has. And personally, for me, this might sound weird, but every morning when I have my first cup of coffee, I like to browse the new titles in NetGalley and just see, what has popped up. Depending on the day, it could be just a few titles, or it might be like tens of titles, and some of them I've never heard of before. So some of the ones that I've read that I never heard of before are Aster of Pan, Femme Like Her, Learned Reactions, and Mouths of Rain. And some of the ones that I had heard of and thus were super excited for when I got approved are Skyward Inn by Elia Whiteley, Redder Days by Sue Rainsford, and Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. I couldn't believe that I was approved for them, and I have already read them, and yeah. So basically, once you are approved, they will show up in your shelf. So I'm just showing you here. This is my start reading shelf. This means that I have had these books approved for me, but I haven't yet downloaded them because I'm not planning to read them in February yet. So once you download them, you have to read them in a certain number of days. I think it's 54 days before the time runs out. And then here I'm showing you my next shelf, which is my Give Feedback, which is basically my currently reading shelf. So I'm reading Composite Creatures right now, and you can see that. And then the last shelf that is kind of important is the feedback sent shelf. There's more, but I did these most recently, and I have reviews up on Goodreads and potentially on YouTube. Usually my booktube ones lag behind because usually they're wrap-ups at the end of the month. Okay, so if you haven't heard of NetGalley and you do have a book blog, a booktube channel, or are a strong Goodreads reviewer, I really recommend that you get NetGalley if you can. All right, number 2 is to sign up and peruse your local library online catalog. All you have to do is walk into your local library if you have one. I do understand that just as with number 1, NetGalley, you need internet access. With number 2, your online catalog, you do need a library near you. So if you do have a library near you, you can sign up and then log into your online account, and then you can browse the catalog. And usually what I do, and I know that this is a bit of work, but for me this actually brings me a lot of stress relief. I like to do this when I'm stressed. I like to make lists. I know it's part of, mental health disorders, but I will search in the search bar translated, translation, translator, or a specific country name. And that is actually how I found certain books for the Invisible Cities Project Challenge. It's by no means perfect, but I will find some gems that way. And then of course these are free because they are from the library. Let's get into number 3, which is Readathon Resources. So many of you probably know about readathons, which happen throughout BookTube all year long. But what you might not know is that after the readathon ends, those resources, such as books to read that focused on that specific aspect of the readathon, are still available. So just for a brief example, I have 2 that I like to reference. So the first up is the Invisible Cities Project, which focuses on translated global lit. So they have a Discord, you can see here, and they also have a Google Doc. And the Google Doc, which I will leave all the links down below, the Google Doc actually has recommended books for all the countries that we're reading for. So it is just an epic Google Doc of translated books or books from countries that are usually outside of the more Western canon. So that includes so far Japan, Morocco, Iraq, Mexico, Argentina, you get it. So it's just this massive global like literature resource. And then the other one that I like to reference is the Blacklit Challenge's Black Literature Compendium. So although Blacklit Challenge happens in February, the Black Literature Compendium is up online all year long. So you can reference it whenever you are looking for Black literature, which might be some of the lesser well-known. So I'm including that website down below as well. So Readathon Resources are great because they are often community sourced. So with all of our combined knowledge of BookTube, we have a lot of books that we put forward and that, we just end up making huge lists, and I love lists. All right, number 4 is Bookstagrammers. I follow a lot of people on Bookstagram, but the ones that are my favorite, like my top 3, are creators who are bringing books to my attention that I would never have heard of otherwise. So I'm gonna just tell you my top 3 right now. Check them out if you want to, but these people are personally giving me life. So first up is Reading Acres. So this is Emily. Her Bookstagram is aesthetically beautiful. Her photographs are stunning. She always has books I've never heard of before. Her book reviews, which she does on individual books, are so eloquent and make you want to read everything that she reads. She reads a lot of translated books, and she had a post earlier this year, which is like most anticipated translated books or something. And I barely knew any of the books on that list, and then I wrote them down and I looked them up and I was like, oh my gosh, what an amazing, amazing resource. So I highly recommend Emily's Instagram. I also highly recommend Ekho's Instagram. Their handle is _hex_libris. So Ekho is Arrow, neuroqueer, non-binary, trans from Australia. And some of the books that I have recently seen on their Instagram is Ring Shout, Monstrous, Phoenix Extravagant, and Honeybee, which are all books that I'm very interested in. So whatever they're talking about, I'm very excited to see. And I also like that they read Australian releases, which is something I'm interested in because, duh, I live in Australia. And then the last one here is a friend of mine, but she also has top-notch diverse recs. This is Olivia from AV Book Club. So she is a Louisiana, US reader, and she is the co-host of the No Cartridge Audio, which reviews video games as literature. So she reads super diversely and has really wide-ranging picks, and I really like to see what she's reading and then also what she thinks of it, and it's pretty much like a gauge if I think I'd be interested in that book, because I think that we have pretty similar reading tastes. She's also the person who introduced me to P. Jelly Clark. We read Ring Shout together, and it was very, very good. All right, moving on to the next way I get my books, which is author Instagrams. So you might not know this, maybe you do, but you can follow, obviously, your favorite authors on Instagram. And there is a real combination here of wanting to know about the author and their private life and wanting to know about upcoming book releases. So for me, a few of the people that I follow because they have really, really funny Instagrams, such as Bryn Greenwood's. So Bryn Greenwood wrote All the Ugly and Wonderful Things, The Reckless Oath We Made, which are some of my favorite books, but then also she just posts shit like this and it makes me laugh so hard. And then other authors that I really follow and love are Tiffany D Jackson, who obviously wrote Monday's Not Coming, so this gorgeous photo here, and then Aiden Thomas, who wrote Cemetery Boys, and then they were posting about their new book, which is coming out, and I'm like, yes, oh my god, I need it, Peter Pan retelling. And then TJ Klune, which obviously is, for me, the Christian Sear duology, which is my favorite dystopian ever, but also he did write The House in the Cerulean Sea, which was sweet, and then he also posted about an upcoming September release. So if you want to know about releases from your favorite authors, like as soon as they happen and as soon as they're announced, highly recommend you follow their Instagrams. The next way I find books, and I promise this is the last Instagram-based one, is to follow your favorite publishers on Instagram. For me, beyond all publishers, the one that stands out the most is Tor.com Pub. I love their Instagram because they are constantly bringing books to my attention that I don't know about, and as soon as they acquire rights to books, they talk about it. So they're talking about books before they have covers, before like the book is finally announced, like before usually it's even on Goodreads, so you get to know about things way ahead of time. Not only that, but obviously their Instagram is stunning, but I just love all of the energy, and they're usually diverse, weird, sci-fi, fantasy, magical realism, and they're usually on the shorter side, which I really appreciate. I love, love, love Tor's shorter stuff. Some of the books that I've learned about from Tor.com pub is A Taste of Honey, The Black God's Drums, Sun Daughters, Sea Daughters, Remote Control, A Psalm for the Wild Built, and Star Eater. And the last two, A Psalm for the Wild Built and Star Eater, I was recently granted on NetGalley, so look out for those reviews coming up in the next few months. I am beyond thrilled. So usually I already know about the books before I even request them on NetGalley. That's how on top of their shit Tor.com pub is. So highly recommend you follow them. Of course, follow like your own favorite publishers, but they're my favorite on Insta. The next way that I find books is by going to publisher websites. So for this, I have two particular ones that I love to go and browse. First up is Tilted Access Press, which is a UK press that's non-for-profit, and they focus on publishing like global translations that otherwise may not have been published. And as you can see, they are where I found out about Strange Beasts of China, which I'm currently reading and can confirm is fucking amazing. So I highly recommend you check out Tilted Access Press if you are looking for translated reads, because that is all they do. The other one is Oni Press, which you might know because that's where Katie O'Neill, like, all of her stuff comes from. So of course there's Aquacorn Cove, Tea Dragon stuff, Princess Ever After, but also they are publishing one about a garden sprite, which is in my March TBR and I was approved for on NetGalley. So if you're seeing here, if you are following publishers on different sites like Insta or their website and then NetGalley, like there's a great like overlapping where you hear about books, you get hyped for them, like you might get approved for them, and it's just like makes my little like book brain so happy. And the next way that I find out about books is by checking out university presses. So you might not know, but instead of publishing houses, there are also university presses, and these are based out of a university, and usually the books are smaller translations, or like smaller, like they wouldn't necessarily have made it to bigger publishing, and if it's nonfiction, it's often peer reviewed. So it's a really great place to find translations that are done by people at the university or associated with the university, and are like vetted by academics. So for me, there's two. Open Letter Books, which is the literary translations from the University of Rochester. And they have published some very cool translations, such as 77, which I read, wasn't a fan of, but I do appreciate that it was translated. Bluebeard's First Wife and 4x4. Those are, I believe, Korean and Spanish translations. And as you can see, Open Letter is also so freaking cool because if you go to their books tab and then hit collections, it will actually show you all of the countries that they have published from. So just looking here, I see Algeria, Argentina, Austria, Brazil, Bulgaria, Catalonia, Chile, China, Czech Republic. Like, you get it, okay. I was only in the C's, but they have a lot. So that's a great way to figure out different translations if you're looking for a specific country. And then the other university press I want to mention is Columbia University Press, and I found out about them like backwards because I was approved on NetGalley for The Membranes, which is a Chinese translation, and The Membranes sounds so fucking cool. It's basically a dystopian world where people have created domes on the seafloor to live in because the world is like so toxic, and this also has queer elements in it, and it's a Chinese translation. I'm so excited. I think I'm going to read this for Asian History Month because it's not published until like later in the year. But I found out about them and I was like, wow, that sounds so amazing and mind-blowing. Who is publishing this? And of course, it's Columbia University Press. So then I promptly went through Columbia University Press's like entire published catalog and added some to my TBR. So yes, check out university presses for translations, especially. Like that's where I get a lot of my translations. All right, so we have 2 methods left. So my penultimate way that I find books is to look at the International Booker Prize. So if you don't know, the International Booker Prize, it used to be called the Man Booker Prize, but they took like the man out and now it's International Booker Prize, is about works in translation. And every year they have a long list, a short list, and a winner, obviously. So as you can see, in 2021, the long list is going to be announced at the end of March, shortlist in the end of April, and then the winner in June. So we don't yet have the long list, that will be up in March, but you can always read, instead of just the ones that are coming up for the award, the ones in the past. So whenever I'm looking for books around the world or books in translation, I like to go to the Man Booker Prize website and see the books that were up for it last year. So obviously The Discomfort of Evening, which I have on my shelves, won 2020, but there was also a short list as well. And you can see all those books. I left the link to their website down below. And then of course you can go to Goodreads and go through the lists of International Booker Prize winners, and then also like assorted prize nominees and like shortlisted and longlisted, so you can just see all of the ones that were up ever. So it's a great resource for looking up translations from around the world that were so good that they were being considered for this big award. So obviously links all down below. And we are to my final way that I find books, number 10. So this is Goodreads Lists. Now I'm not going to get into if you love or hate Goodreads because that's where I have all of my stuff right now. So it would give me like probably a like panic attack if I just erased that and started it somewhere else. So for me, Goodreads is it right now. And for me, I'll go on a Google search and type in the topic that I'm looking for plus books plus Goodreads. So for instance, translated plus books plus Goodreads, or LGBT books, Goodreads, or BIPOC books, Goodreads, and then I will just browse the lists that Goodreads has created. For instance, if I'm looking for something very specific, like I've done before, looking for pansexual rep, if you type in pansexual books, Goodreads, there's probably a list for that. And the last thing I have to mention is that if you don't feel like doing this and looking through, typing it in and then looking through all the lists where you have to read the synopsis and then you might have to check the comments to make sure that it's like good rep. It does take a while, not gonna lie. I find it very enjoyable, but I really like to read about books and make lists, and it doesn't stress me out. It brings me great joy. But I understand completely if you don't want to do that and it's a massive time suck, which it is. I will say, if you follow me on Goodreads, I have my own bookshelves, which whenever I am reading a book that has something in it, I will try to remember to shelve it. There are so many shelves. I also have a shelf for subrecs, which are books that my subscribers have recommended to me and that I truly think that I would enjoy. So whenever I get a recommendation from you guys, if I think that I would also really enjoy it, or I haven't read it, sometimes you recommend things which I have already read, I put it in the subrecs, and then I'm thinking about videos later. So anyway, those are all the ways that I find my books. I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that it was informative. You actually asked for this. 1 or 2 people asked for this, I think last year. So this is me doing a video that you want. Yeah, let me know what else you would like to see. I hope this helps you find books, and I will chat to you all later in another video. Bye!